You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another movie review. Today I will be reviewing the movie The Black Scorpion. The Black Scorpion is a 1957 black and white American horror film. It was directed by Edward Ludwig, and it had special effects by Willis O'Brien. It was released in 1957 in the US and 1958 in Japan. It was filmed on location in the Mexican desert, as a matter of fact, which filming on location wasn't as big back then because it would cost more money, so it was interesting to see. Now let's talk about the plot. The plot is fairly simplistic. It's about a bunch of volcanoes going off in the Mexican desert and awakening these giant scorpions beneath the Earth's surface. They go on a rampage and start killing people and knocking over trains and all sorts of crazy shit like that. We follow two geologists who go out there initially to study the volcanoes, but then ultimately end up trying to study a way to kill the scorpions. The plot starts out a little slow, with people mysteriously dying, things mysteriously getting destroyed, and all the volcanic activity. However, once it gets picked up, you see a lot of scorpions destroying stuff, and a lot of cool stuff like that. And while they don't destroy cities and things like that like Godzilla does, it's still pretty entertaining with the giant scorpions and all the other insects you see underneath the Earth's core. Now enough about the plot, let's talk a little bit about the production quality of the film itself. As I previously mentioned, the movie was filmed on location in the Mexican desert. That made it really nice because it was a lot more realistic. As I also previously mentioned, Willis O'Brien is the one who did the special effects, and if you didn't know, he's the one who did the special effects behind the original 1930s King Kong. So because of that, the scorpions actually look really good, especially for a 1957 movie. I would absolutely say the special effects in this are considerably better than the special effects in the Gamera movies. Which I know isn't saying a lot, considering the Gamera movies are a lot cheesier, particularly the later ones. And the special effects on this are on par with some of the Godzilla films I've seen, if not better than some. Now, another thing you may have noticed is this film is obviously in black and white. I mean, it was a 1957 film, so color wasn't very common back then. Especially for B-movies, which this was. Everything looks really great in this movie for a low-budget 50s movie. Honestly, I really wish we could use more practical effects in today's day and age, because, they get a real feeling of weight with these things. You feel like they're actually there. Obviously, by today's standards, this movie, you can tell the scorpions are fake and stuff like that, but it looks really, really good, especially for a 50s movie. Anyway, that's enough about the production quality. Let's move on. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the version of this movie I watched was the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version. If you're unfamiliar with Mystery Science Theater 3000, it's basically an old show from the 80s and 90s that would take low-budget 50s and 60s films and commentate over them as they air. Basically, they would have improvised comments that the three main characters would make while watching the film. Mystery Science Theater 3000 itself has a very loose plot about this guy being blasted into space and having to watch all these cheesy movies as a punishment because his boss didn't like him. His boss, of course, being one of two mad scientists that are constantly running these experiments. They would often show the movies almost in their entirety, if not in their entirety. I think this one was. It was complete. Most of the time they were, as far as I know. I've only recently started watching the show, so I couldn't tell you for sure. I know the movie cut out some scenes from the one that they did in that, but other than that, I'm not sure. Honestly, Mystery Science Theater 3000, to me, is usually either very hit or miss. I've only seen 3 episodes so far, The Killer Shrews, the movie, and now this. And this was the first one that I really, really enjoyed so far. I haven't actually finished watching The Killer Shrews. I'm about halfway through watching it. And I think the main reason I really enjoyed this one is I actually quite liked the movie itself, and some of the comments they made were genuinely funny, although I think this movie would stand just fine on its own as well. I think that's enough about Mystery Science Theater. Now here I thought I'd talk a little bit about the DVD itself that I watched it on. As you can see, here's the cover art, and it says Mystery Science Theater 3000 presents The Black Scorpion, a terror from another time. On the back, they give it kind of a brief synopsis. It says, the original trailer for The Black Scorpion boasts it was produced on a scale never achieved before by any science fiction picture. That is absolutely true, but not in a good way. Honestly, I disagree with that. I think this movie was actually really good, but regardless. A massive volcanic eruption in Mexico spews quite a bit more than lava in this 1957 horror sci-fi movie. 2 American geologists work with the Mexican army to destroy the giant arachnids that emerge and wreak havoc, ultimately facing off in a bull ring against the biggest, meanest one. Willis O'Brien, the visionary motion picture pioneer, will hopefully be much, much better remembered for the original King Kong than this final effort. On the bright side, it's grist for a million laughs thanks to Joel and the bots aboard the Satellite of Love. And as you can see here, it contains Stinger of Love, Making of the Black Scorpion, which is a 12-minute documentary about the making of the film, and the theatrical trailer. And you see the running time of this version is give or take 130 minutes, which I don't think is actually true. I think it's more like 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. I think that might be a typo, because from what I saw, it was only an hour and a half. There's the disc itself. I definitely recommend this set simply because, this was the way I watched it, and the documentary included on it's pretty good. This is the Shout Factory release. Due to the fact that they would show movies in their entirety, a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000 is either really rare to come by on DVD or just hasn't been released at all. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the DVD. Now I'll move on to my overall thoughts. One other thing I think is worth mentioning is I think when they put that 130 minutes running time on the disc, I think they were including the special features, so I guess that would be true, kind of, if you included those. Or at least a close approximation. So now for my overall thoughts. As a fan of monster movies, such as Godzilla, Gamera, King Kong, and stuff like that, I very much enjoyed The Black Scorpion. It's a nice, cheesy B-monster movie from the 1950s. It's obviously no Godzilla, but it's definitely a great movie, and I definitely recommend if you like giant monster movies and cheesy movies from the 50s, then this is right up your alley, because this is a great movie. As for the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version, I enjoyed some of the things they said, but honestly I would have been fine without it as well, so, either way, it would have still been enjoyable. The main thing is, I wouldn't have heard of this film if it wasn't for the fact that it was Mystery Science Theater 3000, because I bought this at Walmart just a little while ago. In fact, it was yesterday or the day before, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Does this seem like a movie that you guys would be interested in seeing? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? What do you think of Mystery Science Theater? Do you want me to